Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Anxiety Relief Podcast. Now, today's episode is a really important one because reassurance seeking is one of the most common reasons anxiety stays stuck, even in people who understand anxiety really well. And if you've ever found yourself Googling, asking others, or monitoring your body over and over again, I want you to know something straight away. This episode is not about telling you to stop doing that, or certainly not all in one go. It's about helping you understand why you're doing it and how to gently change the pattern without making anxiety even worse. So let's start with something really important. So, reassurance seeking does not mean you're weak. It does not mean you're doing recovery wrong. And it does not mean that you lack willpower. It simply means your nervous system is trying to feel safe. And that is it. Your nervous system is trying to feel safe. Now, most people, though, do not even realize how often reassurance shows up in their day. You may be listening to this thinking, I don't do that. I don't do anything that is simply there to reassure me. But I ask you to listen on because you probably do some of these reassurance actions throughout your day or throughout the week and maybe not actually have the awareness or have noticed them yet. So do listen on. Some people think reassurance is just asking someone, do you think I'm okay? Or asking them about specific symptoms you got, but it can be far more subtle than that. It can obviously look like the obvious one is Dr. Google. So Googling symptoms repeatedly, but there's lots of other ways this can present. For example, checking your pulse or your breathing, scanning your body for sensations and then wondering what they are, reading the same information over and over again to try and reassure yourself. It might be something you have saved as a screenshot on your phone. It could be something you have saved, just like that you go onto each day. It just might be a habit that you do, but it's doing it over and over again and asking yourself questions internally, mentally reviewing situations, or looking for certainty before doing something. Now, all of these are simply attempts to feel safe. And reassurance is incredibly convincing because, do you know what? It works, at least at first, because you will feel anxious. You then do the check. So this might be checking your blood pressure because you're thinking like, oh, my heart's going a bit quick. So you start checking and you get an answer. And then initially your anxiety may drop because you've just reassured yourself and you've taken an action. So now you feel reassured, right? And it gives you that little bit of relief. And that relief can become really powerful over time because you think that actually every time I feel this come on, I just do my little check and I feel better, right? Well, unfortunately not. Your nervous system does remember what you've done. And what essentially this means is that although it gives it that little bit of relief at the time, you're teaching a habit that you have to do that in order to get the reassurance. But that just gives you a little bit of relief short term, but strengthens the anxiety long term. And I'll go on to explain that a little bit further as we go throughout this episode. Now, I want to really slow down and explain like a hot stove example here, because this may help explain this. And sometimes this can be the difference to help people really, really understand what's happening. So, for example, imagine when you were a child and you touched a hot stove. It hurt, right? And obviously, if you didn't, you can still imagine this. Yeah, something's hot, you don't want to touch it. Now, your nervous system very quickly learned something instantly there, didn't it? You touch it, it's hot. Hot stove equals danger. So now, without thinking, you pull your hand away, right? And this happens throughout your life. You don't debate it, you don't reason with it, your body just reacts. Now, that's learning through experience, right? Now, let's flip that process with reassurance. So, your anxiety shows up, you feel the symptoms starting. It might be your heart racing, your chest might feel tight, you've got thoughts constantly spinning through your head. Your nervous system then interrupts and decides it's a potential danger. So you check your pulse, you start Googling symptoms, and you ask someone for reassurance. And when nothing bad happens, your anxiety drops. Now, here's the crucial bit. Your nervous system does not learn, oh, that was safe. It instead learns, that was dangerous, but reassurance saved me. So the next time anxiety shows up, the nervous system reacts even faster. It says, check now, ask again, confirm again. And that's not because danger is increasing, but because reassurance has become the safety signal. This is why reassurance seeking simply just grows over time. At first, you check once, then twice, then you need reassurance from multiple places. Then reassurance doesn't last as long. Do you see where this is going? So people often say, I know this is anxiety, but I just need to check one more time. But that one more time is the nervous system chasing relief. Here's another way to understand it. So imagine a fire alarm that's too sensitive. And I know I use this one a lot, but this is one that people tend to really get. Every time you cook, it goes off. So every time it sounds, you panic, you run around, you open the windows, you start getting that flannel out and fanning it. You check the kitchen, right? And eventually the alarm will stop. But what has the alarm learned? That cooking equals danger. So it keeps reacting. It keeps going off. Anxiety is that alarm. And reassurance is you running around trying to stop the noise. Now let's talk about why reassurance feels so urgent. When anxiety activates, your body goes into threat mode. Threat mode hates uncertainty. Your nervous system wants answers immediately. It wants that certainty. And reassurance gives that certainty for a moment. That moment is enough to reinforce the habit. And that's this reinforcement habit. Checking, 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 getting small amount of reliefs, but making the pain last longer. So here's the uncomfortable truth for this. The nervous system does not learn safety through certainty. It learns safety through tolerance, through staying, through waiting, through discovering that nothing bad happens, even without reassurance. This is the part most people skip. And people often ask, so what? I'm supposed to just sit here and feel anxious? No, you're not sitting there doing nothing. You're teaching your nervous system something new. You're teaching it, I can feel uncertain and still be safe. And that lesson is gold. Now let's address the biggest fear. What if I miss something serious? And this could be an illness that you feel you've got inside you, right? And you might have been to the doctors and they've already checked and they have said, you're fine. There's nothing there. It's just anxiety, or words similar to that effect, right? Now, obviously, if you have something come up, I'm not advocating that you don't go to a doctor. I've got to make that really clear. Yeah, they're medical professionals, they're trained. But if you've gone and seen your doctor once, multiple times about the same issue, and they're giving you the same advice every time, for example, that it's anxiety, well, guess what? It really is that. So this fear about this keeping the reassurance alive, right? Especially in health anxiety, it will always be there if you keep doing it. So let me be really clear on this. Danger gets clearer over time. Anxiety gets louder over time. If you've checked the same thing repeatedly and nothing has changed, and reassurance never lasts, this is anxiety. Not intuition, not danger, anxiety. Now, here's another example. If you had food poisoning, checking once would be enough, right? You could go there and they'd say, yes, we think you've got food poisoning, you'll be unwell for a few days, a week, right? If you had a serious illness, those symptoms would progress. Anxiety doesn't progress, it loops. The same fears, the same checks, the same questions. And those questions in your mind can be extremely, extremely difficult to deal with, where they're looping around and around and around, and you can't find the answers or the solution to them. But that looping in these symptoms and what you're checking is the giveaway that this is anxiety. Now, let's talk about how to actually change reassurance seeking. Because let's be honest, if you've listened to this so far and you're starting to think, yeah, I do this, that could be one of the main things that's keeping you stuck within your current anxious state, right? So this is an important part to listen to learn how to overcome this and move on. And this is where most people realistically go wrong. They try to stop reassurance completely in one go, and that usually backfires because you're removing that safety signal too fast. Now, don't get me wrong, there are ways of doing it where you can just completely cut stuff out and go cold turkey, as people call it, right? But often, if you're in a really anxious state, it can be too much too soon. So what we do is instead we soften it. So we do it in smaller stages, bit by bit, a little bit of progress at a time. So the first step in this is awareness. So for a few days, you don't try to change anything. You just notice. So this is about noticing what you do to reassure yourself. What are you checking? When do you check? What feeling comes before it? What relief is it that you're actually chasing? And be honest with yourself. Really, really be honest with yourself on this. And do this with acceptance. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's entirely normal. It's fine. We will get you past this, okay? But just be really honest with yourself for them questions. And that will build that bit of space that you need. Now, step 2 is delay. When anxiety says, check now, don't argue with it. Just delay. And what I mean by this is, for example, you would say, not yet. I'll do it in a bit. Yeah, we're very good at doing this, for example, when it's something we shouldn't be doing, yeah, or something we have to do. So, like a chore, we can delay that, can't we? We can certainly delay it and say, I'll do that in a bit. Try it with this. So, delaying that reassurance, even if it's just for 5 minutes, during that time, do something different, something ordinary, make a drink, stand up, change rooms, just continue whatever task it was you were doing before the anxiety started being too loud. Often that urge passes on its own. And that teaches your nervous system that reassurance is not essential. And I want to emphasize that point. Reassurance is not essential. And whilst it may feel like when you do that, it's giving you something positive and moving you away from anxiety, it is actually just further instilling a habit to keep the anxiety looping and ticking over, which we don't want. So step 3 is replacement. You don't remove reassurance without replacing it. So instead of, I need to know for sure, for example, if it's like checking your blood pressure, or that knowing that you haven't got something wrong with you, or knowing that you'll be safe if you go out, try, I'm allowed to feel unsure. Instead of, what if this is serious? I've had this before and I'm still here. Neutral language. And this isn't about what people often think is, people say, oh yeah, it's just about positive thinking. It's not. Like, if you just do positive thinking on its own, that will not be enough. Like, absolutely guaranteed. But this is just steadily grounding yourself. Now, I want to talk about self-judgment because when you're suffering with anxiety, it's so easy to be so hard on yourself, to give yourself a really, really hard time about things. And I know people often say, the reassurance keeps me stuck, but I still do it. And that doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that the habit you've got of this reassurance is still strong. And let's be honest, it's very likely to be strong because how many times have you done it? Like, if you're new to anxiety and you've only just started doing it, it may have only just become a habit, right? But many people have been suffering with anxiety for 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus. That habit is deeply, deeply ingrained within you. And we don't just change a habit of a lifetime overnight, do we? And habits don't change because we understand that it's a bad habit, right? They change because we practice actions differently. We do things different. A saying I often use when speaking to people about anxiety is that nothing changes if nothing changes. And this moves on to the action part. Now, often when I'm dealing with reassurance issues with my clients, this is why I use something called the reassurance ladder. So at the bottom are small checks, and at the top are full spirals. So you don't just jump from the top to nothing. You would step down slowly. 10% less is enough, right? Each day. If you were constantly managing to reduce how much you're doing it by 10%, that is still progress. And progress with reassurance looks like this. It will be checking later, checking less, needing fewer answers, recovering quicker, and not spiraling quite as far. That's real progress. And you need to be accepting of this, that it won't just happen overnight. It won't just happen within a week. It does take time and consistency. So the more you practice stopping, delaying the reassurance, the more it will impact your life and make them slow improvements. So you delay it. Yeah, so delay the checks at first. And what you'll find over time, you'll then find when you're able to switch and start doing normal things, you'll break the habit and then you can stop doing it. Yeah, so you do the delays and it will eventually cause it to stop. Now, here's something really important. Anxiety recovery is not about feeling certain. It's about learning to live without certainty. Reassurance is a way of avoiding uncertainty. Tolerance is how confidence grows. This is an absolute key point here. Anxiety is all about uncertainty, right? So if you constantly find yourself avoiding uncertainty, you will never be able to really sit with the anxiety and learn to overcome it. So it's really important you take that on board. So I want to go through that just one more time to really let this point sink in. If you need to rewind it back, I say rewind, I'm sounding like proper like I'm from the 80s here, but or whatever we call it, go back a bit for this. I just really want to emphasize this. So anxiety recovery is not about feeling certain. It's about learning to live without certainty. And reassurance is a way of avoiding uncertainty. Tolerance is how your confidence grows. Really sit with that. Now, I want to leave you with this. Every time you choose not to seek reassurance, even if just briefly, you are teaching your nervous system something new. And every time you do not seek that reassurance, you are not failing. You're learning where the habit still lives. And both of them matter. I'm going to give you a little takeaway to take from this podcast to try at home this week. So for the next week, try this. Pick one reassurance habit. So, like I said earlier, and if you need to go back to that, listen through it when I'm explaining what questions to ask yourself, right? But do that to try and find what reassurance habits you have and then pick just one of them. Yeah, we'll go through one at a time. So pick one and then go through this method. When you feel that you want to do that habit, delay it, soften it, replace it. So delay it as in, I'll do that later, I'll do it in a bit, go do something else. That softens it. And then what we do is we will then replace that with something else, which is you do something different. And that will help you get over it. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you manage to delay it and then still do the checks you do, or still speak to the person that you speak to, or whatever way it is, right? Because I know I've used a lot of health anxiety stuff in this, and referred to it being that, but this can be about calling a certain person. It can be about when you're online and you might be in anxiety groups online, and every time you feel it come up, you're saying, I need to speak to someone. Like, I see that a lot. Do you need to speak to someone? That's the question. Or can you delay it? Before I write that, I'll do that in 10 minutes after I've made a cup of tea. Yeah. Soften it. And then over time, replace it with something else. So there's no pressure on this. And do not seek perfection because you will not find it. It's just about repetition. Be kind to yourself. Be non judgmental of yourself. And that kindness and the non judgment of yourself, even for the fact that you've got anxiety, right? Anyone can have anxiety. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're weak. It's totally normal. And I know I say this all the time, it's part of your defense system within your body. Yeah. It's totally normal. It's okay. It's just triggering when it doesn't need to. And we're going to slowly work through and get you past that. If this episode resonated, it's because Reassurance has been quietly running your anxiety. And that means you're ready for the next stage of recovery. If you want support, you're welcome to join us in the Anxiety Relief Hub. Now, that is an exclusive group for people on Facebook where you can come in and join a super supportive community and learn about anxiety. There's a free ebook in there. Obviously, there's links to the podcast in there. There's exclusive video content in there, amongst many other things. So if you would like to join that, please search that on Facebook and go in there and join. And that's obviously free. And you can obviously also, if you want to go to the website, you can download my free ebook, The Anxiety Relief Roadmap, which gives you lots of short, sharp, actionable tools that you can use today to get relief from your anxiety and start you on the road to recovery to get over it once and for all. If this helped, please follow the podcast and leave a rating. It really helps this reach people who need it. Please, if you know anyone that you feel this podcast would help, please, please, please share it out to them. Be part of that helping journey for them, because you never know how much impact you would have by giving that to someone, and then it really helps change their life. And I want to end by just saying this. Thank you to everyone who's listened so far and making the podcast the success it seems to be continuing to be already. The more people that listen, the more effort and time I can put into it. But thank you so much for listening and sharing, reviewing everything. You are not weak for seeking reassurance. You're human. You are able to beat your anxiety. And I believe in every single one of you. You're far more capable than your anxiety wants you to believe. I'll speak to you in the next episode.